The 11th Congressional District race does not only affect those in our district. This election will ultimately affect our country. President Trump has accomplished so much for the betterment of our country. We want to make sure that this work, the work of his administration, continues right on through the 2020 election. We need to educate ourselves and choose one of these candidates who will best advance Michigan and the Trump agenda in Washington. The Michigan Conservative Coalition is interested in providing voters with a deeper insight into the views and the opinions of the different candidates running. This is MCC's second 11th Congressional District debate, and we've had standing room audience each time. No voter apathy in the 11th. If you'd like to support the Michigan Conservative Coalition and help support events like this, there'll be baskets going around, actually hats, I believe. So please donate anything that you can. We'd really appreciate it. We'd like to begin tonight by thanking our 6 candidates for not only participating in tonight's event, but for running for this important seat. I'd like to introduce the candidates. Joining us tonight, our State Representative Clint Kesto, Christine Bonds, who is the co-founder of Detroit Digital Advertising, former Congressman Carrie Bentivoglio, businesswoman Lena Epstein, co-owner of Vesco Oil, Senator Mike Kowal, and businessman Rocky Rachkovsky, founder and president of Imperial Logistics. Candidates, there are many complicated issues facing our nation. Our session tonight is designed to getting better insights into the positions that you hold on some of these important topics. We appreciate the tough job our moderators will have to do tonight, and their efforts will help us learn what we can from the questions that they ask. Tonight's moderators for our debate will be Jackie Page. Jackie is WJR News Radio's 950 Midday Acre WWJ on weekdays. Jackie? Our second moderator is radio personality Jim Johnson from WOMC. And due to an unexpected conflict, Nolan Finley is unfortunately unable to be here tonight. One last detail, Michigan Conservative Coalition will broadcast tonight's debate on Facebook. We're using MCC's page. So text your friends to watch the news or watch on our later in our archives. Now let's go over the rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will be given 30 seconds to introduce themselves. Each will be given a minute for a closing statement. The order of these opening and closing statements were decided by a draw of a stick a little while ago, actually a pencil.
Numbers on it.
With numbers on it, yes. During the debate, candidates will be asked questions that require one of the following. Each will answer with a response up to 1 minute, or they'll be asked a question that they'll respond with a rapid response, or it will be a written response. Thus the markers carry. Candidates, if your name is mentioned by another candidate, you will have 30 seconds to respond if you choose. And our moderators, at their discretion, may ask a quick follow-up question. And candidates will have 30 seconds to follow. Our timekeeper for tonight's event is Patty Bowers. Patty will keep the time limits and show when the time is almost up with a yellow card. Show it. Okay. and when the time is up with a red card. Patty has the authority to interrupt the candidates if they run over their time with a very loud bell. Patty, can you give us an example?
Louder.
Louder, more cowbell.
Patty, you also have the discretion to ring that bell if you see anybody in these loungy seats sleeping. Following the debate, we're going to have a meet and greet in the Imagine Theater bar area, and we ask you and invite you to attend. You'll have the opportunity to say hi to your favorite candidate and maybe ask some questions of that candidate or other candidates that maybe weren't clarified during the debate. Our last request is to the audience. Please be respectful of all the candidates and please cheer for your own candidate. So without further ado, we're going to begin with the candidates' 30-second introductions, and that will begin with Rocky. And at that point, Jackie and Jim will take over. So, Rocky?
Thank you very much for MCC to throw this great debate and the amount of people that came out. You could have been anywhere today, but you came here. On a side note, I'd like to take a moment of my time and wish our First Lady, who had surgery today, Godspeed in her healing. And I hope that all of you join us all in praying that our First Lady recovers very quickly. I'm a soldier and I'm a businessman. And I think tonight, you'll see the difference between a soldier, a businessman, and somebody that is more concerned about serving our country than being a congressperson. And I look forward to earning your support. Thank you.
I'm Mike Kowal. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I'm concerned about the direction that this country is going in. I've had the opportunity to work in my family's business for 39 years, and I got tired of the overburdened restrictions, taxes, and regulations that not only the federal government, but the state government put on us. It got to a point where we were totally restricted. And I'm looking forward to this debate, and I want to thank all my colleagues and friends for being here tonight. And I'm pretty much friends with everybody here. Christine is new to the process, but I want to welcome her here as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Bonds, and thank you so much for being here tonight. First and foremost, I want to remind every single one of you that you are the most important person here. This election is about you, and tonight I can outline what I've heard just knocking on doors, and that is the plan, the purpose, and the people I know, and to make sure that we have the best community looking forward in the next 5, 7, and 10 years.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Clint Kesto. I'm the current state representative from Commerce Township, West Bloomfield, and Wixom. I'm a father of two, husband, and when I look at my two little children and say, what direction is our country going to go in? What direction will it be for your grandchildren and children and the future? And we need that conservative change that brings the power back to you, that takes it away from Washington, that drains that swamp so that we can put American jobs first and put Americans first. That's why I'm running for Congress, and I appreciate your support.
Good evening, I'm Lena Epstein. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing, conservatives? All right, I'm Lena Epstein, running to be your next Congresswoman. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner and a job creator, and I was President Trump's statewide co-chair for the state of Michigan. We carried a historic win. I have one question for this audience tonight. Are you ready to do it again in 2018?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. My name is Kerry Bentivolio, and today, by the way, is the 14th, right? Anniversary, 75 years for Israel. And I'd like to thank the President of the United States for moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Please do. Former United States Congressman, 2012, 2015, I think, no, 2013, 2015. 93% conservative rating, 100% score for cutting government waste. Second most transparent member of Congress. I want to go back to Congress and do it again because you deserve somebody that will never vote for tax increase, never voted for the debt ceiling increase, was 100% transparent, that's a proven record, and 100% fight for cutting government waste. And that's very important because both sides of the aisle want to spend your money.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you.
We're going to begin with a question that's going to be directed to each of the candidates. I guess we'll just go right in order like we just did. But first, I'd like to, first of all, full disclosure, all of these questions were supposed to have been secret. I happened to get a copy of them a week ago, though, from Donna Brazil. Kidding.
Yeah.
Personally, as a conservative myself, I have supported President Trump from the very beginning for one reason. I wanted somebody, and he seemed like the right guy to do it, to go to Washington, D.C. and kick over every single table in the district like a bull in a china shop. That's what I wanted him to do. The TV personalities talk about chaos in the White House. I don't think so. He's doing exactly what we sent him there to do. So my question to all of you is, what do you think President Trump's greatest achievement is so far? And what policy decisions might you disagree with the president on? Rocky.
Okay, what is his greatest achievement? Neil Gorsuch, bringing North Korea to the table, dismantling and destroying ISIS, the tax cut that will benefit, by the way, the 11th Congressional District by huge amounts. 93% of the 11th Congressional District will receive part of that tax cut. So these are all great achievements. But I think one of the best achievement of them all, the capstone, is how he's truly taken Washington and shaken up the Republican Party. Unlike many of the candidates that are running, I'm running because I'm just as frustrated with a lot of the Republicans that are in office as I am with the Democrats. And I think if you join me in that, we need to send somebody that's a disruptor and someone that is willing to work with others, but disrupt when this is an anti-American policy coming from Washington. People forget who they serve.
I agree with Rocky, but growing up in the post-Korean War, the fact that he's got everybody to the table, I love the tax cuts. I really agree with all the policies that Trump has put forward to this point in time. But getting the Koreans to come to the table and getting the Chinese to basically buckle to what's going on over there. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but the Chinese called up the White House and they begged that the U.S. Navy let 2 oil tankers get into Korea just to supply them with the bare necessities of oil. And that's because of the blockade that President Trump put up. We're looking at the same kind of blockade that Kennedy put up around Cuba. And you know where that brought us? It brought us very close to the brink of war. But Kennedy didn't blink. Trump is not going to blink. I think that this is going to take us a long way. I think putting troops on the Mexican border, letting the National Guard get on the Mexican border has been something I wanted to do from the onset when we saw this happening. So I'm looking forward to a lot more of these policies taking place.
Ms. Bonds?
I'm really disappointed with the omnibus bill. It's way out of line. And I think I'm most proud of his willingness to listen about the worst drug epidemic in the history of our nation, and that is the opioid epidemic. He is totally on board. When I went to Washington, this was very soon after I announced that I was running last January. I went to Washington, I met with Paul Ryan's team, and we were able to have the president add in the light item for the opioid epidemic problem. So now we have $6 billion allotted for the next 2 years. There's 2 sides to this coin, the demand side and the supply side. Definitely securing our borders is another great thing that he's all about that will help with this problem, but my focus is really going to be on the demand side.
Trump has done, I think, one thing that is evident in all of the actions that we've seen, and that's make America great again. He's done that by putting Americans first, by putting American taxpayers first, by putting American jobs first. We saw it with the tax reforms. We saw it by making sure we're funding our military. We see it by his negotiation, by not being soft on North Korea or Iran. And this is a man who's there to make sure that he's making America great again. What I have liked to see more, though, is making sure that we contain our debt. Our debt ceiling continues to rise. But at the same time, We need to have more investment in infrastructure. We have crumbling roads, we have crumbling bridges, and our water pipelines are outdated. That's one thing I believe the president is going to focus on in the future. Thank you.
Donald J. Trump's biggest accomplishment was getting all of us to mobilize and elect him president. Without question, you can clap. I know you guys want to clap for that. President Trump spoke to me. He spoke to many of us around the country that felt left behind and underrepresented. And when I tell you there is an establishment and there is a swamp and there is an order, a pecking order in how things work in DC, that is real. I assure you of that. And the fact that President Trump was able to win the presidency reminds me that the real power of our party is in the grassroots. And Donald J. Trump paved the way for a business owner and a political outsider like me to run and try to serve. Thank you.
First of all, I wasn't like you. I wasn't on board with Trump at the beginning because, like a lot of politicians, we hear a lot of people talking and promising things, and you know what happens after that. I think his greatest achievement is that he's showing career politicians that when you make a promise, you're supposed to keep it. Actions speak louder than the political rhetoric. The other thing is, I took a little walk, bicycle trip a while back, and Donald Trump, during that trip, he said, we're going to make the VA accountable, and we're going to give veterans the best health care. And all those things he's accomplished that my opponents here have mentioned, including making the VA more accountable. We still have some distance to go on that, but that really won me over. I got to tell you, he said it on the radio, he said it on the phone, along with Sean Hannity, and he said we're going to make the VA more accountable, and he pushed Congress after he took office to do just that. Thank you very much.
There's been a lot of talk on the media, obviously, about since President Trump took the oath of office, even before he actually took the oath of office, of impeachment, Russia collusion, as the president has quoted fake news, as many of the people in this room may agree with that. And now they've moved on to sexual harassment, and we've seen indictments that have been made where a judge a couple of weeks ago, in terms of Paul Manafort, said that the Mueller team had to come up with more evidence in order for that indictment to move forward. So as you have already been a member of Congress, my question to you is, should President Trump let the current special counsel that is investigating him in Russian collusion, should the president have the discretion to fire special counsel, or should he wait for what do you think the next move would be? Should he have the discretion to fire Robert Mueller?
5 things you'll have a hard time finding in Washington. Number 1 is truth. Number 2 is common sense. Number 3 is sense of humor. Number 4 is an honest reporter. Number 5 is parking space. Okay. So what is he going to do? I think he should just let it happen. But I'm going to take the advice and follow Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, and Trey Gowdy. Take their advice because I know those guys are tigers. I know them personally. They'll get to the bottom of it. I would basically avoid the political theater and just focus on let's get the job done. And all that's political theater, a lot of it is. And it's amazing because it's disingenuous to our voters. There's no Russian collusion. I believe that. I think everybody in here believes that. If anything, it's probably Democrats that are doing it. And they do this to deflect the attention away from themselves. That's a political ploy for politicians, is they like to deflect. They're guilty of this. If they're guilty of the crime, they're going to focus on their opponent and accuse them of being guilty of the crime.
Okay. In 2012, the national debt was a huge topic during all of the debates. That was when the Republicans came out and said the national debt was a crisis and we needed to handle it. The Democratic Party said it was not a crisis and it did not need to be handled. Since we passed the tax cuts now, the national debt now is a crisis in the Democratic side, and on the Russian side it is not. The national debt, when about 75% of all spending is for social entitlements like Medicaid and Medicare and for the national defense, should we add to the debt by spending more than the taxes collected, or should we cut spending?
Would you repeat the last sentence, please?
Yes. Should we add to the debt by spending more than the taxes collected, or should we cut spending?
Let me be very clear. I do not support additional increases in spending. You cannot tax your way to prosperity, let's be very clear. But the omnibus bill that was just passed, was the best that Congress could do for President Trump. I think that's very important to recognize. We do have people in Congress, conservatives, who want to balance the budget. I would have proposed a budget that would balance faster and cut more. But the reality is right now, guys, right now, there is not an amassing of conservative voices in the House. The House cannot pass a balanced budget with the people that are in office. I got involved in politics in 2008 when the recession hit. A third of my customers, our family's customers, closed their doors. We have been led in Congress by people that are career politicians, not job creators who don't understand what overtaxation and what overregulation actually means to the businesses and the families that they employ. I do support balancing the budget. My daughter Emma was born with $64,000 in debt per capita. This is a problem. As a business owner, I am uniquely qualified. With the scale that I have overseen, I am uniquely qualified to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
If you don't mind, because you mentioned this in your opening statement about the omnibus spending. That was, and you led with the fact that it was something you disagreed with the president on. Do you think it could have been better? I mean, what he did get out of it was drastically needed military spending for a crumbling military infrastructure. We did get that. Yes, it costs a lot of money, but we did get that. And then I have a real quick follow-up question after you answer that.
Yeah, we did get that, and we also got a lot of spending towards Planned Parenthood. At the end of the day, look, at the end of the day, Washington has enough taxes already. Congress is spending too much money, period. And guess who the usual suspects are? Paul Ryan, Pelosi, the other two, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell. They are the ones that passed that bill. So guess what? We need to rein the power back from the executive branch and put it right back into the legislative branch. And that includes Congress and the Senate.
This was really a bit of a diversion on my part, because what I really want to ask you about, one of the criticisms that we've heard is that maybe you are more of a one-issue candidate. You take issue with that?
Who's we?
Well, it has been discussed that opioids is your issue, and that is a one-issue campaign.
Well, it's killing 65,000 Americans every single year, so...
Is that enough? That one issue to get you elected?
Look, I am a die-hard conservative. I believe in pro-life. I believe in less taxes, okay? At the end of the day, that's one issue that sets me apart. But quite frankly, another huge problem that keeps me up at night is where we are. Our district is in the heart of what we've always known to be the military center of our nation. Okay, we were the arsenal of democracy. For the first time in history, Ford, Fiat Chrysler, and GM are not manufacturing the most cars. Just 2 weeks ago, Ford announced they are sunsetting 12 nameplates. They are no longer in the business of manufacturing sedans. Why is that? Because the imports have taken over that sector, okay? So now it's about SUVs, of course, because of consumer demand, but also because we lost that market share for good, all right? So not only am I going to be the opioid ender, I'm going to be the driverless starter. And that means that the job trends have to align with the technology trends, and I have the plan in order to make that happen.
Just a little bit, this is one of our rapid response questions, and this will be to all of you. On February 14th, 2018, a mass shooting occurred at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. 17 people, including students, were killed and 17 more were wounded, making it one of the country's worst shooting events. By a show of hands, who believes that we need to have guns in our schools to prevent another mass school shooting?
What kind of guns?
What you gotta
What kind of
better
guns?
qualify for that.
Do you think that any guns should be allowed in schools, period?
You need to allow us to explain, please.
Yeah.
That's,
I think we're all
who's
unified.
carrying the guns? Can we
I
take
think
the
we'd
mic?
like to be unified and address that.
Okay, let me ask you this. Should teachers be armed?
No.
Rocky says no.
Would it be okay if we each took a moment to answer that? Because this is not a black and white issue, and I think the others deserve more.
Okay. I think 30 seconds each. 30 seconds each. We'll start with Congressman
Let's see if
Benavides.
I understand you correctly. Just so you know, I was a school teacher in public, private, and charter schools. I have a master's in 5 undergraduate majors, okay? Certified school teacher, rated highly qualified. English and history in high school. And also a master gunner of an artillery battalion. Won numerous awards for marksmanship. SWAT trained. And some of my SWAT people are here today. And I wasn't allowed to have a gun in my classroom to protect my students. Do you know what? Not every teacher is qualified, but all you need is about 4 that have that training or some more advanced training. Okay? And that'll stop a lot.
Somebody who's about to send her daughter to school in a few years, my husband and I are regularly looking at issues of school safety, and as a proponent and a future voter in favor of school choice, I do support transparency in schools for parents and educators and students. As a result, I'd like to invite everyone to think about one idea. When you drop your child off at school, would you like the sign to read, "No guns allowed," or would you like the sign to read, "There are strong, capable people in here that are armed and prepared to protect our children"? You ask yourself, let's protect the Second Amendment. Thank you.
If you have the training, our teachers should be able to be armed if they want, if they're qualified. You know, in Florida, in that tragedy, we did have an officer outside. That officer did not go in. So I ask you, those who have children, wouldn't you rather have someone who's trained and qualified? So I would say yes, they should be. And today, in the state of Michigan, though, open carry is allowed. Currently, we're debating on our House and Senate in Michigan whether or not we should change that to be concealed carry in schools or open carry in schools. Same question, though, it's the same answer, is that we need trained, qualified, responsible gun owners that are there to protect themselves, to protect our children, and to protect our communities.
Yeah, I mean, so we have alarms in our cars, we have alarms in our houses, and our greatest gifts are our children. And I don't see anything wrong with, I've talked to Sheriff Bouchard about this, about having police officers at schools as well as security guards. That's going to cost money. But also a common sense solution would be to, better barrier the front entrance. It doesn't, that's a very manageable solution to
safety schools.
We just passed some bills out of the Senate that's going to allow for hardening of buildings to make it more difficult for people to get in. Tomorrow there'll be a bill moving through government ops, my bill, that's going to allow the schools to contract with retired police officers who are trained to carry and to protect our children. They can come into the schools and they can do that. So if my bill passes, and I'll need your help with it, but we can put retired police officers in those schools that are fully trained and capable of dealing with those issues.
Further, let's put retired military that have been trained as well. I've served in the military for 26 and a half years, and I think that I could possibly do the same as a retired police officer, especially if they're trained in the law. But what's very important here is that we need a school marshal program that is connected to the local police, that is actually able to interact with the students. I've spent some time with the Birmingham school students, and I've talked with them about this issue, and in Birmingham schools, they actually have a school marshal that's connected with the Birmingham Police Department, so I do support that.
The next question actually will be for all of you, another kind of a quick response to this, but my view of the United States of America is, as they drew up our Constitution, was to have a small federal government, and most of the majority of the power would rest in the hands of the state. What exactly does state sovereignty mean to you? You may as well start, Rocky, you've got the mic.
Well, state sovereignty means everything. We are the United States, and there's a reason why there's a 10th Amendment of the Constitution, because states should be dictating their marriage laws. States should be dictating their laws of, or for example, healthcare insurance. We've basically centralized government because we think the federal government has all the answers. Folks, it doesn't. We've always learned that the government that is closest to you is the government that governs the best. And that's what we should be doing, is returning the powers of the federal government back to the states. Let me give you a quick example, as my time still allows. And that
30
is
seconds, less than 30.
And that is the the Department of Education. They have $48 billion, and they do very little.
69
That
billion.
should come back, 69 billion. That money should go back to the schools and to the classrooms.
Thank you.
And that's precisely how we ended up with Common Core, which doesn't do any of us any good. We need to return the power to the states. When we came together originally as the founding fathers, it was the states that brought it together. The federal government was just a coalition as to how we're going to protect the federal government as a whole. If you look at the Constitution, it really says that the federal government's responsible for protecting us against foreign governments. And it's done that over the years, but it's been changed, and I'm going to say polluted, because I believe that especially during the Obama administration, the local states, all the power has been drained out. They were draining as much out and putting it back into a big central government, which doesn't do any of us any good, because we know how well the federal government works when it gets involved. Look at our roads.
Yeah, I mean, what scares me the most is that we can't even get decent roads around here, and we're giving them the power to, govern our health insurance, our education. Everything needs to be peeled back. And again, one of the reasons why we are in the debt that we are is because the powers that be that are supposed to be reining in spending and so forth are not doing that, and that's because it has gone to the federal level. We need to peel it back, give back the power to the state leaders, to the local leaders, so that when grants come in from the federal government, we see some of that money.
The 10th Amendment, probably one of the more important ones that we're seeing today, because of how large the federal government has become. And 3 words: drain the swamp. These bureaucrats have run amok. They continue to become leeches and leeches and leeches on each and every one of us, taxpayers. And those that we send to Washington can give you all the rhetoric they want. They have done nothing about it. It's time to look at candidates that have actions. We have the same problem in Michigan. We have a ton of bureaucrats. We have a ton of these leeches. I introduced legislation, I believe it's in the Senate now, to rein them back, whether it be the DNR, the DEQ, or MDOT, from just grabbing your property for whatever reason that they want and saying, well, we decided that we need it. No, this is wrong. The bureaucrats here in Michigan have run amok. The bureaucrats in Washington have run amok, and it's time to return that power back to the states. But look at those that have actually introduced legislation, got it passed, and are doing something about it as a solution.
Thank you.
Would Glenn hold up my Constitution, please? I take that everywhere with me. It's worn and tattered for a reason. It's not nice and crispy and clean. I refer to that Constitution on a daily basis. Article 1, limited powers of the federal government. James Madison said it himself. He said the powers of the federal government are few and limited, but the powers of the states are numerous and indefinite. There are not enough people in Washington, D.C. that have read the Constitution and understand the very limited power. In Article 1, there's one lady who's read it. In Article 1, it says, and I believe that this group of activists, by the way, I know that we are constitutional conservatives. There are people that are tuning into this debate tonight from around the country that I want to invite to read the Constitution and understand the limited role of the federal government. Our founders intended, it's in Article 1, our founders intended for the federal government to meet at least once a year. This idea of a citizen legislature where someone like myself would be a business owner and job creator, go and serve and come back, that's it. Very limited powers, I'm gonna be a no vote if it's not explicitly stated in Article 1. Thank you.
Article 1, Section 8 basically details what the federal government can do and they can't do. 10th Amendment, state rights, whatever is not covered in Article 1, Section 8 is states. Problem we have is that state legislators have refused to force the issue in nullification. And there's a reason for that. It's a little deeper than we might want to believe, but when you're a politician in the state and you want to move up the ladder in the career, you want to do everything you can to satisfy those boys in Washington. You know, those lobbyists, those people that want the Department of Education, that want a lot of other federal agencies, and I'm having one of those Texas governors moments, right? Here's the thing, Department of Education has no business in the federal government. Why hasn't the states forced that issue? Why haven't we? I will tell you this. I asked the chairman of the committee for Department of Education, who asked me to be on a subcommittee. I said, you know, I'd really like to do that, but I'd like to get rid of the Department of Education. And he said, so would I. How do we do it? That's the big question.
Isn't that why we sent Betsy DeVos there?
Yeah, that's why we sent him there. But
Don't put the microphone down, because now we're going to change tunes a little bit, and I have a specific question just for you.
oh my God, I'm so special.
Well, come on, you can step right up again. And it is a rather pointed question. It seemed to me that you were not able to raise enough money to defend your seat. What are you doing differently now to raise enough money to win this campaign, and how much money is it going to take to win?
It doesn't, well, if money determines the election, so why do we have a primary? Why don't we just pull out our checkbooks, whoever has the most money wins? Folks, win the elections. I'm going door to door almost daily, knocking on doors. I don't have a lot of money because, oh boy, we could get in the weeds on this, but when your opponent hires lobbyists to go up and down K Street and say, don't go to the fundraisers that I had with Boehner, Paul Ryan when he was likable, McCarthy, Jim Jordan, and some other people, we raised $20,000. Why? Because big donors were told, you're wasting your money because I'm going to spend $5 million to unseat this guy. You spent $2.4 million. What am I doing now? Well, I called all the donors. We made over 1,300 calls and raised about $20,000. It's not enough. I'm not selling out to PACs and lobbyists in Washington, or lobbyists who've basically been told, if you donate to Benivolio or this governor candidate, don't expect to come in our office. You're not welcome. And they laughed because they told these folks, let them get their money from the grassroots, because we're going to make sure that PAC money doesn't come their way. Now you want to know the honest truth? And the truth hurts, doesn't it? Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna use a little bit of moderator judgment here, and I'm gonna ask you all of this. You made a very good point in terms of getting the money out of politics. That has come up for a vote in Congress. It has been turned down. I want to ask all of you this question, if you could just give us a quick response. We have people like George Soros and the Koch brothers that are the ones that are making all the rules for the rest of the country to follow. The Koch brothers, people would say the Koch brothers, people would say George Soros. How do you get the money out of politics, and what would each of you sitting up here vote to say get the money out of politics if we were to elect you into office?
Well, there's some free speech issues with money because you don't want to violate free speech, so people can spend as much as they want. Yeah, I've been asking myself that same question. There's no simple answer. It would be nice if we could, well, then again, I don't even know if this would be right, but we could maybe have a donation where everybody splits it equally and you can only spend that money, and I think that would be good because, like me, I haven't had a credit card in 15 years, not because I can't get one. It's basically I don't believe in spending money I don't have. So if we gave everybody, let's say in a congressional race, $200,000, and whoever spends it the wisest and gets the votes, maybe that'll work. I don't know. What's the number? Because some districts like Michigan, here in this area, you have one of the highest, most expensive, your stations cost a fortune compared to what Traverse City or Holton, Michigan costs. Thank you.
Epstein, thank you. I made a short list in the 30 seconds while Carrie was speaking about what the money goes to. The 11th Congressional District is Michigan's most expensive congressional district to compete. So in order to share and advance a conservative message and be competitive, between the primary and the general, we do need resources to compete. We are the Republican Party. Let's not be apologetic for capitalism and an environment where people do need media, television, radio, mail. Our campaign needs resources to hire the very talented staff that is in this room working tirelessly. It takes money to be organized. It takes money to know what matters most to people in mass. This is a big district. My husband and I have contributed 2/3 of the money to our campaign. The other third has been raised from the public. And I want to thank my donors, our donors who are here tonight to make this campaign possible and to spread and advance a conservative message in November. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, as a former prosecutor, I used to look at these things and look at the law and see exactly where do we draw lines on any of the legislation or laws we're doing. So let's look at the First Amendment, though, and freedom of speech. As Carrie Benevolia mentioned, I think each and every one of you here, if you decided to put $100 or $5 or $1,000 or whatever it might be, you would want that opportunity to be able to put it where you want. But someone has decided, prior to us, that there has to be some type of limit. And so there are these limits. The question I think you're asking is whether somebody should be able to buy an election or not. And here's what you have to look at. Is that person willing to work for you? Is that person willing to go out and do their job? Is that willing to go out and serve, that person willing to go out and serve the public? Because then money doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you put in $1 million of your own money. If somebody was charged and appointed to the Child Trust Fund to do their job and they don't show up, is that the person that you want? Or do you want somebody who will be there fighting for you every day?
That was directed at me. I'm going to take the mic for 30 seconds, please. I am very, very proud to be an appointee of the Governor of Michigan to the Child and Abuse Neglect Prevention Board. I have been creating jobs my entire professional life, and I think it makes me very sad when career politicians want to take cheap shots because you are the voters and you deserve better than that. I am a lady. I am a conservative. I'm a job creator, and I'm very, very supportive of children in Michigan. And I want to thank Governor Snyder for not just appointing me, but for reappointing me. And I'm very sorry that Representative Casto had to go negative tonight, but it just means that we're in front. Thank you.
15 seconds, please.
Well, the truth is that you have to vote in person in Washington. We're not there 87% of the time to protect our children. I find that to be a problem. Look at the track record of what I've done in the State House. We did right now we're working on sexual assault reform in the House because of Larry Nassar's abuse towards children, and we've expanded it. This is real work, ladies and gentlemen, of actually doing the job.
A little bit off topic. Let's get back to campaign finance just for a second.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of rules that we have to abide by, and quite frankly, it is 24/7. I mean, the work is never ending, and the most important pillar, one of the most important pillars of being successful is being able to raise money, and it truly is coming from donors, from your family to friends to strangers, and knocking on the doors and so forth. But what's most, I think, unfortunate is like a person that has never run before, like myself, is that you don't know what you don't know. And why do we have these conversations only when there's elections? It's like, let's fix, if we're really going to talk about campaign finance reform, let's get ahead of it so that at the next election, there is some reform and people can benefit from us, people who are running.
Thank you.
Well, the way to get money out of it is to set term limits on what federal legislators can stay there in Washington. Set the limit at 12, 14 years, and they run one time, stay there for that period of time, and they're out. And that's how you cut the guts out of it. That's how you take the money out of it, because they're there and they're not going to leave for that period of time. So I'd be in favor of setting a limit, and I'm going to help push the legislation to get the Constitution Amendment into the states. And if we can make this happen, it's all of you that will decide what the term limits will be for the congressional candidates. You have to make that decision as to how long they're going to be there. And the sacrifices that we're all willing to make to go there and do that. Now, you look at us as you're sitting there in the audience and you're thinking, well, they just want to go there to be called congressman or congresswoman. That's not the fact. We're going there because we want to institute change here in these United States and change here in Michigan and to keep our kids home and to make sure we're successful.
I'd like to take a few seconds of my time and just ask all of us to keep our ire against the Democrats. That's who the real enemy is, because those are the people that are trying to raise our taxes and run our deficits up and everything else that we totally disagree with. So let's focus on the real enemy in November, and that's the Democrats. You asked a very important question about money in politics. Out of all these individuals, and I respect them, I really do, but I differ with them in many areas. I'm the only one that signed the tax pledge, the Grover Norquist tax pledge for Congress people.
I signed it.
You did recently? Oh, congratulations. Okay, who did sign it? Okay, so a few of us signed it. Also, I'm the only one that signed a term limits pledge.
No, that's not true either.
Okay. Lastly, it's got to be on public record. Lastly, I actually was a co-chair of term limits. I believe in term limits. And we need to make sure that the only way our politicians become transparent and accountable to you is if they're less interested in being a congressperson and more interested in working for their community.
I will take a little bit of issue with you, sir. 12 to 14 years? About like 6.
Well,
Maybe 8. And while we're on the subject, just let's make this official. Show of hands. How many of you as candidates are in favor of term limits in Washington, D.C., both in the House and in the Senate?
Excuse me. I actually signed the term limits pledge. My first.
Well, you mentioned that. It's been mentioned by a few of you. I just want to get everybody on the record. Are you in favor of term limits? Everybody says yes. Senator Colwell, a specific question for you, sir.
Come over here.
I understand. You voted for Obamacare's expansion.
Medicaid expansion.
Medicaid here in the state of Michigan. Do you now regret that vote?
I would like to rethink that at the time. Now, you have to understand, Obamacare was already found constitutional by the Supreme Court. Obamacare was already considered the law of the land. And they were coming in here and they were taxing all our small businesses, including mine, and they were taking that money and they were going to put it in other states. We have a problem here in the state in that if you show up at a hospital, you have to be taken care of no matter what. We're trying to redirect that and get them into urgent care as opposed to the emergency room. Every parent will tell you, if you have a child in the middle of the night that has an earache, you're going to do whatever you have to do to take care of that child. But that's the reason why we put the work component into it now, because we're finding that there's a lot of people that are cheating on the system. So we want to get those people out of the system and requiring them to put in so many hours worth of work every week, just like the rest of us do, in order to maintain what little bit that they have. So yes, I did vote for it. It was the thing to do at the time. Michigan also at that point in time had enough state money to run the state for 35 minutes. And that was running out really quick. So we had to make all these adjustments and changes, basically turning on a dime. And that's what we had to do to keep Michigan from going into bankruptcy like Detroit wanted to.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Was the answer yes or no?
What was the question?
Or do you regret
the decision?
At times, yeah, at times I did.
So you wish you could rethink it, is what you said when you first got up.
If you were forced to vote for it today?
Quick answer.
If I was forced to vote for it today with the financial condition that the state is in, probably not.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, at this point, I did skip over something, but I'm going to go back to it, and this is a specific candidate question for Rocky, Colonel Troszkowski here. The federal government has marijuana classified as a Schedule I controlled substance. Should the legalization of marijuana by individual states be delayed by the federal government until a method to measure its effect on humans is developed, like a breathalyzer?
No. And I support medical marijuana, but I'm really disgusted by how the state instituted medical marijuana in the state of Michigan. And this November, I'll be voting no on the recreational use of marijuana. If you want to know how I'll be voting no. I would not want a pilot. I would not want a surgeon. I would not want my fellow brothers and sisters in the Marine Corps or Army, Air Force, Marines using marijuana because it's legal in a state. I think we're desensitizing ourselves and moving down a slippery slope of liberal thought. Is marijuana useful in certain areas? Absolutely. Is it useful in pain management? Absolutely. But should we legalize it for recreational use? No.
Thank you.
Let's change horses again, and as long as we're doing moderator discretion, I hope our hostess doesn't mind, but I think this is a very key question. And it's going to become very important if one of you, and when one of you is elected, I'll say that because we're going to beat the Democrats, right? No matter what, no matter which one of you wins, you are going to defeat the Democrats in November. So I'd like to make this a question for all of you. I hope we have enough time to get through this, so please be as quick as you can. We'll give you each a minute. We'll start with you, Carrie. DACA. What in the world are we going to do with the so-called DACA residents of our country?
First, they have to prove that they actually are a DACA person. How do you do that? How do you know they came here when they were a child? What documentation do we have? 1,000 questions. If the House votes that they're going to allow these people to be here with a green card, they have no chance of becoming a U.S. citizen, even if they marry a U.S. citizen. Something I would consider. It's still up in the air. They came to my office and we had all these questions talking about it and listening to their concerns. Right now, at this point in time, I don't think there's a right answer because, look, you're here illegal. That's the way it is. You have to go home, okay, wherever you came from. That's just the way it is. Until you can prove to me that you were here, because, look, I toured the border. I went down to Guatemala, El Salvador on a congressional CODAL, okay? And, yeah, I get it. They want to come here for a reason. But you,
So does everybody.
yeah, well, I get it. It's a wonderful place, right? I don't want to live anywhere else. But this is what we have to do, is we have to get to the bottom of those answers. I'm not going to vote for DACA until I see some real, serious safeguards.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I actually went to college with a few Dreamers at Harvard University. The Dreamers some of them are in their 30s like me. Let's be very clear. I do not support amnesty. We are a country of laws, and I will not apologize when those laws are enforced. And one of the reasons that I supported President Trump is he wanted to put American citizens first, and he continues to do that today. I am one vote in favor of defunding sanctuary cities. I am one vote in favor of building the wall, and immediately, let's bring our troops home from Afghanistan. Let's put them at the border. Let's get this country secure. We right now have open borders between Mexico and the U.S. Only God knows what is going through that border. There's heroin, there's fentanyl, there's human beings being trafficked every single day. I will be unapologetically supportive of our laws when it comes to immigration. Thank you.
Well, right now, here's the situation. There are people here, but even worse is that because of those individuals that are here illegally, there are more that want to come. This program has caused a disincentive to file for immigration through the proper avenues and the proper channels. So what we have to do first, Jim, build a wall, fill in the tunnels, protect our borders, have vetting for those that are coming in, make sure that those that are coming in as visitors leave as visitors. They're welcome to come, but they must go after their visa expires. With regards to DACA, the president has floated around various proposals, one of which is to give them a citizenship status. I was on Tim Skubic probably 2 months ago or so. I would be opposed to that because there are so many people waiting in line through our regular immigration laws, our legal immigration laws, that are going to be left behind. It's time to put people who do the right thing first, and that's where I would stand on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no question that we need to see some reform relative to immigration, but, taking a step back, it wasn't so long ago that when people came over, immigrants came over, they needed sponsors. They had to find folks who would sponsor them. And why is it that every single year the IRS can, peruse through 150 million tax returns when we can't sort through 11 million immigrants and their documents and so forth? I think that we need to really take a step back and dedicate the appropriate time and attention and resources to identify what it is going to take in order to start the process of some kind of reform. Because again, it's costing taxpayers, all of us, more money, and and truly too, it's also let's stop just lumping everyone all together. Each person has a right to have us look at their situation, but at the end of the day, a legal immigrant is a legal immigrant, and an illegal immigrant is an illegal immigrant, especially if they're criminally active. There's no sense in having folks here who are, actively creating crimes and so forth.
I was the first one to introduce to ban sanctuary cities here in Michigan. I also fought back against, if you remember back, the busloads of kids that were coming up from Mexico, from the Texas-Arizona borders that were coming in by train load. And they brought them up to Mount Pleasant. And they're currently still in Mount Pleasant, thanks to the Obama administration. And they brought with them diphtheria, mumps, measles, chickenpox, a variety of diseases polio, things that we thought we wiped out here in the United States, especially in Michigan. And they introduced them into the school systems out at Mount Pleasant. Well, guess what's happening? The kids up there are coming down with these particular diseases, and they're of a different strain, and because of that, we're having a hard time fighting back against it. So making sure that people immigrate here the correct way, the proper way, like my grandparents did and my wife's parents did, that they came here from Ireland, they had to have sponsors, they had to have a job, they had to have somebody that was fiscally responsible for them, and they were not able to get on welfare, they were not able to get on Social Security, they were not able for any social benefits at all. And if you want to come here, you got to work.
Thank you.
I think the key, every single one of us up here had a good point. I think the key, what Mike and actually Senator Kowal and Ms. Bonds mentioned about the sponsorship program. I'm very familiar with it because my parents came here under the sponsorship program. My mother and father immigrated, and they taught me a great love for this country. So there are DACA children or DACA adults now that do have a great love for this country, but there has to be something that allows them to either legalize or, as many of us said, go back to the birth country of their parents. One of the conservative proposals is if you legalize and pay a penalty and you waive your right to vote as a citizen or even as a green card holder, you can then have legal status. That is one of the conservative proposals that's out there. There's multiple conservative proposals, but the key issue is here that one wrongdoing should not be automatically rewarded with immediate citizenship. My parents did it the hard way. My father had to wait 7 years before he could be sponsored from Canada into the United States under the McCarthy era. I love this country, and I will support anyone that loves this country, especially those that want to serve in the military. There's a fast track to become a citizen.
Okay, thank you. During a recent Michigan gubernatorial debate, candidates had differing views about the secret explanatory memorandum, which was exposed in litigation during the 1990s. The explanatory memorandum laid out the Muslim Brotherhood's strategic plan for a civilization jihad in the United States. Prominent political and media figures on each side of the political aisle are saying that even mentioning the topic of the Muslim Brotherhood's stated goals or mentioning the topic of Sharia law are automatically racist and cannot be discussed. This question is to all of you. Do you believe the Muslim Brotherhood has a long-term goal to implement Sharia law throughout our country? And if so, do we need American laws for American courts?
Where do you want to begin?
Representative Castro, you want to start?
I don't know what their plan is. Their plan is probably to destroy America and American values and American beliefs in our Constitution. But at the end of the day, you have to have strong state legislators, strong federal legislators, and strong judges that will say, these are the laws that we have and we're going to implement them here in the United States. Can you say Muslim Brotherhood and then be pegged as a racist? I suppose so, but that doesn't make anybody a racist. My parents came from Iraq. They're Christians. They immigrated here in 1977, fled from persecution. They enjoy the freedoms that we have here in the United States. They are Americans here in the United States because there's liberty, there's freedom, there's the pursuit of happiness, there's opportunity. And we have to make sure that we, as future legislators, current legislators, and as citizens, protect one thing that the left continues to tear down, and that's our Constitution.
Ms. Bonds?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to know what they're thinking. It's not fair to assume anything. I'm like, you can't assume anything. But, I think it's important to understand that all of us have the right to pursue our happiness and let's not start judging anyone until there is some tangible evidence and real facts to back it up. But, we don't want to limit anyone's freedom, certainly, and, let's not jump to any conclusions here.
Senator Cole?
One needs to be a student of history and understand why the Crusades happened. What happened throughout the Middle East? Why is there mixed DNA in Eastern Europe? And it was because of the influences that were coming in from the Middle East and what was trying to take over. And look at Spain and why there's Moorish architecture and why. And just go back and ask yourself these questions and do a little studying on it. And then picture in America with that happening. I'm not saying everyone is wrong or evil. What I'm saying is we need to be totally vigilant. We have one set of laws in this country. They're based on the 10 Commandments, and they're based on what our founding fathers and brothers put together when we were developing the Constitution of this country. Those are the only laws that we need to adhere to and should adhere to, and that's what I'm going to support.
I'll make this brief. We have a constitution, we have laws that are set in place by our locals, our states, and our federal government. And that is the only law that our courts should abide by. Period.
Oh boy, I got to take issue with some folks up here. I think I'm the only one that signed the pledge that says no Sharia law.
Incorrect.
Excuse me. If I'm incorrect, it's only because a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, or a month ago, I was the only one. And the issue was, I actually asked everybody, all my opponents, to join me in signing that pledge. Also, there are some people up here that actually hosted in Lansing groups that are on the terrorist list. And they were hosted by some of our state legislators. So you might want to dig a little deeper into who's talking and who's actually doing. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Epstein?
This question begs another question. What are we willing to do in this country to protect religious freedom? I am a member of the Jewish community. I said that last time in this debate. I understand what it means to flee religious persecution. My brother-in-law, I don't want to point him on the spot, but Alex came here when he was 4 from Russia. It was not safe for Jews in a lot of parts of the world. And here I am at 36 years old standing in front of you, and I can tell you that our party is the platform of inclusivity. Our party is the platform of religious liberty, that I can use the word God, that I can be Jewish, and that I can advance a conservative agenda in this country. I am very, very keen on issues pertaining to religious liberty in this country, and this really prompts me. What I'm most concerned about, and I'm going to invite everybody to think about this in our time left, what is it going to take? I'm going to open up this question. What is it going to take to win in November? These issues are all real. We could sit for hours and talk about policy. President Trump has us working really hard because he works hard and he expects a lot from his team, and as a result, the rest of the country is hitting these critical issues. Think about this in the moments left. Who will be your strongest nominee? I'm going to circle back at the end and tell you why it's us. Thanks.
You're right. We could spend hours on each one of these issues here. That's the tough part about doing this job. In fact, I'm going to make a little edit right here because one of the questions was about Common Core. But in order to ask the question, I need to first find out, is anybody on this panel at all in favor of the Common Core standards? Then we can move forward if somebody is. Is anybody on board with Common Core standards? I didn't think so. Let's move on to another topic then. I think everybody in this room kind of agrees with that. I want to do this real quick. We do it in 15 seconds. Some of you are politicians, some are not. Give me just a quick description about how you are going to go to Washington and not become part of the swamp. Let's start with Rocky. Really quick, please.
I'm not interested in making friends in Washington. I don't care. I'm not interested in being a politician. I've got a 4-year-old daughter and a wife that I'm very happy and home with, that I love my home and I love my community. Washington does not excite me. I do this because my country excites me.
Senator?
Been to Washington quite a few times, and quite frankly, it makes the hair in the back of my neck stand up. I was there not too long ago. I came home and told my wife, I said, this is an evil place. And somebody needs to go there to go and do their job and represent the 11th district to Washington, D.C., not Washington, D.C., the 11th district, because that's quite frequently what happens. They get tangled up in all the minutia that's up there and stuck in the bubble, and we don't need that. We need people that are going to be conscious and know what's going on in this district and take care of each and every one of you that live in this district. And
thank you very much, Senator. And maybe we're uncovering the reason that we're all here tonight instead of Mr. Trott going back to Washington. Maybe he became a victim. Ms. Bonds?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be the voice of your family in Congress. I'm not going for power. I'm not going for money. I'm going because I care about this district. Born and raised in Metro Detroit. My heart's here. My family's here, and that's why I'm going.
As someone who's a current house in our state house, we see how Washington has grown so large, and it's time to get that power back. But look at some of the bills I've introduced and gotten signed into law. That is draining the swamp by making sure the bureaucrats don't have the power.
Ms. Epstein.
Respectfully, a lot of people on this stage are career politicians. I'm really sorry to say that, guys, but it's true. I am a business person. This is my first time running for public office. Here's what makes me different real quick. Nobody can bully me. My business partners are in the room. You can attest, nobody can bully me. And I can also attest to the fact that I will lead with tremendous love. Our party is like a family. In our family, we're not always going to agree. In our party, we're not always going to agree. But what this district is looking for, we want somebody who is going to be a fighter, who understands job creation. And by the way, this is a huge pay cut. It's extremely inconvenient having a young
Save
one.
that for the close.
Sure.
You've already
Thank
answered
you.
the question. Thank you very much. You, sir, were part of the swamp. Did you bring any of that tape back to Michigan with you?
No, I guess you don't know my background. I served in Vietnam. I know how to fight in the swamp and enjoy it. Thank you. And listen, real quick, I'm probably going to run out of time, but I talked to the speaker for the first time, and it became Boehner's my smoking buddy. But the question went something like this. I said, Mr. Speaker, I'll never surprise you. I'll never lie to you. I won't tarnish the office. I'll never vote for a multi-issue bill. We call them omnibus bills. I didn't know it at the time, because that's the first time I ever served. And I won't vote for a debt increase, and I won't vote debt increase in the ceiling of the debt, and I won't vote for a tax increase. But other than that, I'm a Republican.
All right.
Okay?
Great,
And
thank
so
you, sir.
when I left, he said I kept my promise.
I didn't think you smelled bad when I met you earlier. That's right. Sometimes in Washington, you have to shower twice a day.
All right, so I want to piggyback a little bit
Twice a day.
back to what Ms. Epstein had said a little bit earlier. And this is a question that I actually came up with myself, and I want to ask it of all of you. On social media, Twitter, Facebook, the Republican Party, and it's not just on social media, it's all over the place, has been called the party of hate, with many calling Republican speakers on college campuses fascists and Nazis. And I want to know how each one of you is going to go to Washington and change the perception of the Republican Party. You have 30 seconds.
I really object to the fact that they would call us Nazis. I had members of my family that were killed in the Polish ghetto in Warsaw. So being called a Nazi really rubs me the wrong way. I've had family members that were basically exterminated in Europe. Some were Catholic, some were Jewish. The Republican Party is a welcoming party. We welcome everybody, and we have every aspect of the Republican Party that wants to come in, we welcome them in. And I've been involved with the local Republican Party since the Reagan administration. And I gotta tell you, I have never seen any form of racism at all. There's individuals that might make a snide comment periodically, but we'll get that all over. If you want to see racism, go look at the Democratic side. There's racism.
Mike's absolutely correct. The party of racism is more of the Democratic Party. They talk about tolerance, and they think that they speak for the entire community and about what's good because they've got a louder and larger megaphone. But they don't tolerate divergent thought. They don't tolerate conservative thought. They don't want to help people up. They want to bring them down so that they can control them. That's the problem with the Democratic Party today. That's where the Democratic Party lost me. And you asked the specific question is, what do we plan on doing? I've got a lot of big shoulders. I've got big shoulders, and I'm more than happy to change that perception, because the perception is not just against the Republican Party, but it's against the entire politics and politicians.
Yeah, I mean, let's just rise above it. Lead by example. It's, you know, social media, whatever, but we know who we are. We know our character. We know what smarts we're bringing to the table. That's it.
Well, there's two 24-hour cable news networks that are devoted to bashing the Republican Party. I mean,
Well, we don't have to respond to it.
okay.
We have to make change by giving people an opportunity. That's how we win. Republicans win because our country is one of opportunity. Not what the Democrats want, handouts, holding people back. But our free market ideas, our opportunity ideas, have no bounds of color, race, ethnicity, or religion. And if we keep doing what the Republican values are, of capitalism, opportunity, lower taxes, being able to have people be sustainable and thrive on their own, pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty, then we will be the party that will lead and people will gravitate to us and our ideas.
Ms. Epstein?
I love the Republican platform. I actually campaign I take nights off from the campaign to go to college campuses and talk about a conservative message. Talk about it in plain terms, talk about it in a way that students relate to. And I go all over the place and talk about a conservative message. I'm in line at the grocery store and talking about a conservative message. And why is that? Our platform is the platform of more. Sean and Matt have heard me say this a lot of times. Economic growth, opportunities for our kids. We're in the 11th district, we're concerned about a few things. I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I'm a wife, I'm a mom. Is Emma gonna have a doctor that can care for her when she's sick? Is my husband gonna have career opportunities for him for years to come?
You'll be able to say that more in your closing statement.
Thank you, but I would like to say this. I'm very, very proud to be a member of the Republican Party. It has grown under President Trump. Let's keep that momentum going. Thank you.
How the Republican Party has a bad reputation of being the party of hate, of being the party, they've been called fascists, they've been called Nazis. How are you going to change the perception of the Republican Party?
Christine said it best, lead by example, sometimes ignore it. And by the way, we had a bipartisan debate sponsored by the Democratic Party, and I was the only one to go down there, and I actually won the debate against 5 Democrats. I'm a vaccine choice person. You should be well informed before you take vaccines and know the risks. Understand that, all right? However, if they invented a vaccine that prevents hypocrisy, I'd make it mandatory.
Thank you, sir. And you may as well stay right there because this has been a great dress rehearsal. We're going to start the debate now. Is that all right, you guys? All right. We're going to go with closing statements right now. Unfortunately, we could go on forever. I'm just getting warmed up. What about you, Jackie?
Yeah.
I know. But unfortunately, we do have time constrictions. You'll each have 60 seconds for a final response. We started here last time. We are going to begin here and work our way across the stage.
Will I get to be first?
60 seconds, yes.
Okay.
You were last for the opening statement. You get to be first now.
Terry Bentivolio, actually, first-time congressman, served 2 years, rated 100% score for cutting government waste. That's fighting both sides. Rated second most transparent member of Congress. Has 3 pieces of legislation, probably 4 if you include one that actually was entered into a bigger bill. We never actually submitted, but it was put into a larger bill. Let's see, what else can we talk about? House historian said it was the most effective and successful freshman congressman in recent memory. It's in a congressional record. Look, folks, I served my country in 2 wars. I served my country honorably in Congress. There's no risk here. I want to pass Read the Bills Act, Single Issue Bills Act, get rid of those omnibus bills. We are this close. And we got 15 seconds. Look, it's not about money. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not about lying. You know, here's the facts, all right? Look at the record. Are we perfect? No. I got a 93% conservative record. If you don't agree with that, that's okay. It's still an A in any classroom. And if you don't agree, well, we'll just call you a 7%er. You know, that 7% I got wrong. Okay? God bless you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today.
Very quickly, I would like to thank my husband. He doesn't like me to put him on the spot, but my husband is so supportive of me doing this. Thank you, Eric. We live in the greatest country in the world. It's the American dream, and it's worth fighting for. Each one of us are the American dream embodied. A couple things I wrote down on your way out. The Dems are beating us in bumper stickers. If you would please tonight, my team is going to hand you a Lena for Congress bumper sticker. If you like what you heard tonight, and I hope you did, please put a bumper sticker on your car. Let's beat the Dems at their own game with the bumper stickers this fall. I'm also going to invite all of the candidates to a unity breakfast hosted by the Lena for Congress campaign the morning after the primary. Everybody is invited, location to be determined, whether I win or lose. But let me assure you, I am the strongest general election candidate. This campaign, this seat cannot be bought. It must be earned by all of us working hard. Are you ready to join me? Thank you. Thank you.
The Dems always beat us at bumper stickers. Hasn't really gotten them that far, really, has it?
Only on the rusted on.
Representative Kesto, your closing thoughts.
Thank you. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I know it's a Monday night, a lot of things to do. We all have families, and thank you to our gracious moderators for being here as well. My name is Clint Kesto, former prosecutor in Wayne County, current state representative from Commerce Township, West Bloomfield, and Wixom, father of 2 beautiful children, husband to my lovely wife, Delina. And it's time to really see what we want in Washington, what we want for our future. And we want that conservative change. We want to repeal Obamacare. We want to defund Planned Parenthood. We want to continue this tax reform that is beneficial to you, to the American people, to the American taxpayers. We want to make sure that we're putting our American jobs first. And I'm the candidate to do that, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at my track record over 6 years, I haven't been a person who points at problems. I haven't been a person who goes to fight against anyone. I go to fight for you. I go to work for you, and I find solutions. We're finding solutions to our mental health problems in Michigan. We're finding solutions to our opioid abuse epidemic in Michigan. We're serving our veterans in Michigan. We're looking at sexual assault reform to protect our children in Michigan. These are the solutions that I've been working on, and I look forward to serving you in Washington and our nation's capital, not to point at problems, but to find solutions.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, and
sir.
God bless you.
Thank you, Representative. Christine Bonds.
It is a privilege to be running for Congress. It is about all of you, putting all of you first. I have been living in this area for my entire life, and this is what I know. We are, again, at a very critical time in our district because we have to ensure that GM, Ford, FCA, Chrysler remain at the top of their game. And in order to do that, we have to have the right leader go to Washington and be that voice, because if we have the right leader in Washington, we will prosper in the next 5, 7, and 10 years. And secondly, it is about ending the opioid epidemic for good. We've got to focus on long-term recovery and prevention, prevention, prevention. So thank you again for coming tonight.
Senator Kowal.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here in front of all of you. It's really an honor and a distinction to serve all of you in Lansing and to protect the state of Michigan and protect your families. I've worked extremely hard to help keep the automakers here in Michigan in the forefront. I passed all the bills regarding the autonomous connected vehicles, helped open up the Center for Mobility, and that put Michigan not just #1 in the general area, the Midwest states, it put us #1 in the United States. It's made us #1 in the world of securing the auto industry. Research and development is staying here in the state. Our jobs depend on each and every one of you. Your lives are touched by the auto industry in some manner, way, or form. We've dropped that term, the Rust Belt. I want all of you to take home one thing with you, and one thing only. We're now the Tech Belt. We are the Tech Belt, not only for the United States, we're the Tech Belt for the world. Everybody's coming here to test their vehicles. Get me to Washington, and I promise you, and I don't make promises lightly, I promise you that I'll continue that work to make sure we maintain that status, protecting our families and our way of life.
And finally, Colonel Ruskowski.
Thank you. We have a journey and we have a decision to make, and that decision is, are we going to support less government, less taxes, and more personal freedom, or are we going to just slide into this semi-social malaise of a type of country that believes in social collectivism? I don't want that for my daughter. That's not what my parents gave me. My parents gave me a great love for this country, a love that fostered joining as an enlisted man at age 17 in the infantry. Again, then going again and becoming a commissioned officer serving in the United States Army. I applaud every single one of the individuals. They have great qualities. But I'm the only one that actually started a multi-million-dollar corporation. I'm the only one that is less concerned about being a congressman and collecting a paycheck than he is serving his country again. I ask for your support today. When you go out, we'll be passing out yard signs and bumper stickers. I ask you also, most importantly, go to our website. I finally had to use the paper that we were given. RockyWorksForUs.com. RockyWorksForUs.com. It's much easier than Ruchkowski Works For Us. It's RockyWorksForUs.com. Hope to have you on our team and on to November. God bless you.
And how about a hand for every one of the candidates for tonight? All 6 of you. Rocky made reference to the magic marker, and we had some whiteboards for the candidates. They were actually going to write down a written response. We never got to that part. This is way harder than you think it is. I want to apologize to Jackie because I was throwing her left-handed curveballs all night long, and I just want to say you did a fantastic job. Thank you for doing this, and I apologize.
Thank you all for coming, and we'll hand it back to you, Marion.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Jimmy, for doing such a great job tonight. Thank you so much. And once again, we'd like to thank our candidates for participating. Can we have a nice round of applause for them all? They did a great job. Thank you so much. We want to thank all our sponsors for this event, and for our timekeeper, Patty Bowers, and all the volunteers that helped put this on. And once again, we want to thank the Imagine Theater. Please stick around for the candidate meet and greet afterwards in the theater lobby bar. And I'd like to remind you that if you want to buy your, purchase your ticket for Diamond and Silk, we have those on sale here at this table here. This is with Diamond and Silk and Corey Lewandowski, June 22nd, here up front. And thank you all again so much for coming, and God bless you.